During the War of Independence of 1857, countless people rose against British colonial rule. They wanted freedom, dignity, and an end to foreign control. Soldiers, peasants, tribal communities, and local leaders resisted the British with great courage. However, while this resistance was spreading, another hidden reality was also taking shape. Alongside the fighters of freedom, some influential groups chose to support the British Empire instead of opposing it. Among these groups, certain powerful religious families, especially a class of peers and Sajjada-e-Nashins, played a major role. These peers were not ordinary religious figures. They held immense influence over the rural population because people trusted them as spiritual guides and believed their words carried religious authority. The British understood that controlling Punjab through military force alone would be difficult, so they decided to use a smarter strategy. Instead of fighting directly against the masses, they built alliances with these peers, using their spiritual authority as a tool of political control. Through this alliance, the British weakened the freedom movement and strengthened their grip over Punjab. The uprising of 1857 was one of the greatest challenges the British faced in India. It was not just a minor revolt or a limited military rebellion. It became a large-scale resistance movement that spread across many regions. People from different backgrounds united against foreign domination, creating fear within the colonial administration. The British realized that if the rebellion succeeded, their empire could collapse and their political control over the subcontinent would end. This fear forced them to rethink their strategy. Instead of relying only on weapons and armies, they adopted long-term political methods to stop future rebellions. One of their most important strategies was to win the support of local influential groups such as landlords, tribal chiefs, and spiritual leaders. By supporting these elites, the British created divisions within society. They ensured that some groups benefited from colonial rule while others remained oppressed. This division weakened unity among the people and reduced the strength of resistance movements. Many peers and Sajjada-Nashins did not support the freedom struggle. Instead, they sided with the British to protect their own interests, wealth, and authority. Their religious influence was extremely powerful, especially in rural Punjab, where people followed their peer with deep devotion and unquestioning loyalty. These peers used their spiritual status to influence the public and convince their followers to remain silent and avoid rebellion. Some even declared the Mujahideen-e-Hurriyat and freedom fighters as rebels and enemies of peace. This was not merely a religious statement. It was a political decision that directly helped British imperialism. Because the public respected these peers, their words carried strong weight in society. As a result, many people became confused about whether rebellion was justified or sinful. This confusion weakened the freedom movement, reduced public participation, and allowed the British to suppress resistance more easily. The British did not reward these loyal peers with small gifts. Their rewards were massive and carefully planned. They gave them lands, political titles, and symbols of authority that increased their social status. These rewards acted like official certificates of loyalty. The British knew that land meant wealth, and wealth meant long-term power. When the British granted land to these spiritual families, they were not simply offering generosity. They were building permanent political partners. These families became economically stronger over time, and their influence expanded across villages and districts. Their loyalty to British rule increased because their wealth and authority depended directly on colonial support. The British used these rewards to create a new ruling class where religious leadership and feudal power were combined into one elite structure. The Court of Ward system became one of the major tools used by the British to control land ownership and strengthen loyal elites. Under this system, large estates were granted or protected for peers and Sajjada Nashins, ensuring they could dominate local society. The British used these spiritual families as political instruments, expecting them to control rural populations through their disciples. This created a chain of obedience. Villagers obeyed the peer, and the peer obeyed the British government. This system transformed many spiritual families into powerful landlords. It allowed the British to rule indirectly, because instead of directly confronting the public, they controlled society through religious authority and feudal dominance. The Court of Ward system ensured that these estates remained in the hands of loyal families, preventing the rise of independent local leadership that could challenge colonial power. Many examples show how the British granted huge amounts of land to loyal spiritual families. These land grants were not ordinary gifts. They were massive estates that permanently changed Punjab's social and political structure. For example, Ghulam Muhammad Shah and Riaz Hussain Shah of Shahpur received 6,423 acres of land. Sardar Sher Muhammad Khan of Attock was granted 25,185 acres. The Shah Jaimna family of Jang received 9,564 acres. The Gulani and Gardezi Sadats of Multan were given more than 18,500 acres. Syed Ghulam Abbas and Syed Muhammad Ghaus of Jalalpur Pirwala received 34,144 acres, making them among the most powerful landowners. Even the wealthy Daltana family of Ludan was granted 21,680 acres of land. These estates were enormous, and they created a new feudal hierarchy in Punjab. Such land distribution strengthened spiritual families as political elites and ensured they remained loyal defenders of British rule. These estates were not just pieces of land meant for agriculture or farming. They were symbols of political obedience and proof of loyalty. The British used land as a weapon to buy silence and suppress opposition. Families who received these lands became protectors of British imperialism. In return, the British allowed them to dominate the local population, control village economies, and influence public behavior. These estates became permanent symbols of power. Over time, land ownership became the greatest source of political influence in Punjab. Whoever controlled land controlled wealth, and whoever controlled wealth controlled votes, decisions, and society. This is why the British created a system where loyalty was rewarded with land, ensuring long-term colonial stability. The most dangerous aspect of this system was how devotion was turned into subjugation. People were trained to obey their peer without questioning. Religious respect was used as a method to control minds. Followers believed that opposing the peer was equal to opposing religion itself. This belief created a society where independent thinking became weak and blind loyalty became normal. Public consciousness gradually became stagnant. Instead of learning about politics, justice, rights, and freedom, many people remained trapped in obedience. The disciple was no longer a free citizen, but became a tool in the hands of spiritual and feudal leadership. The British benefited greatly because this system reduced rebellion and kept society under control without the need for constant military force. Even after independence, this system did not disappear. The descendants and successors of the same spiritual feudal families still hold political power today. Many of them sit in national and provincial assemblies. They continue to dominate rural Punjab through land, wealth, and spiritual influence. Punjab's political structure remains deeply connected to feudalism. In many rural areas, voters do not vote based on education, policies, or national development. Instead, they vote according to the command of their peer or landlord. This is why democracy in Punjab often appears controlled rather than truly representative. Elections exist, but the power structure remains inherited and fixed. The influence of shrines and spiritual authority still shapes political outcomes, proving that colonial strategies of indirect rule continue to survive. Punjab's political structure is still influenced by the colonial past. The British created a system where land ownership, spiritual authority, and political power became deeply linked. This system continues even today. Devotion remains blind to politics, and many disciples become voters without independent thinking. Many people believe they are participating in democracy, but in reality, they often vote according to the will of powerful spiritual feudal families. True democracy can only develop when society gains awareness, understands history, and separates spiritual belief from political manipulation. Only when people begin to think freely and break the chains of inherited obedience can Punjab move toward real freedom, justice, and equality.